Here's a problem your AI data workshop could help with. A vendor just raised your costs. You've got a budget that was supposed to go someplace else, and now your vendor wants an answer by Friday. So you go to your workshop, and that's the good news because you have one now. You know exactly where to look for the data to help make this decision. Unfortunately, the newest file there is from 4 months ago. So now you're not making that decision. You're logging into four platforms and pulling exports, and every one of them raises a new question. Where did I leave off with this one? Did I already pull data 3 months ago, or did I skip it? Is this range going to overlap something I've already got in the folder? 40 minutes later, you finally got fresh data, and you've completely lost the thread on what you sat down to figure out in the first place. Or, and this is the most dangerous approach, you don't do any of that. You look at what you've got, you tell yourself it's close enough, and you make a decision on old data. The workshop didn't fail you here. You built it right. You just walked in and the shelves were empty, and nothing was ever going to tell you that except the day you needed something off of them. So today we're restocking, and it turns out there's more on those shelves that expires than you think. This is the Build Your AI Data Workshop. 5 stations, 5 letters. S.T.O.C.K for source, transfer, organize, context, and keep current. Today is the K, and it's the last one. You found out what data you have. You got it out of the platforms, you gave it a home and a name, and in the last video, you taught your AI what it's actually looking at. Today is about keeping all of your hard work up to date in the future. By the end of this video, you'll have 3 things: a refresh rhythm for each of your data sets, a decision about how you will add new data into your folders, and a short list of the other things in your workshop that expire, which are all easily overlooked. Now, most people think keep current means re-downloading your files. You go get the new numbers, drop them in the folder, and you're done. That's one of 4 things in your workshop that expires. Your data goes stale. That's the obvious one, and it's the one we'll spend the most time on today. But your cheat sheets will go stale because your platforms change what they give you. Your saved analyses go stale, and they do it quietly as you ask different questions and focus on different projects. And your data inventory goes stale, the list you made back in the source video of what data you have and where it lives. As your business evolves, the data you work with will evolve as well. That's 4 things, and every one of them runs on a different clock. So let's take them in order. All right, let's start with the data, and one really important question. Not how often should I refresh this, but that is the question we're trying to answer. But the question is this: how often do you actually make a decision with this data? That's your answer to how often you should refresh it. Because refreshing your numbers faster than you act on them is work you're doing for nobody. If you look at your ad performance and change something once a month, pulling that file every week means you've pulled it 3 extra times to look at it and do nothing. Now, there are 2 factors that will push that cadence faster. The first is how quickly the data piles up. A business doing 40 orders a day accumulates a meaningful amount of new information in a week's time. In contrast, a consultant closing 2 clients a month really doesn't. The second factor is how much the numbers move around. If your numbers are steady month over month, a stale file is still roughly correct. But if they swing, seasonally, or because you're running promotions, or because you're in a business where one week just doesn't look anything like the next, then a stale file can be very misleading. So if either one of those describes a given data set, it piles up fast or it moves around a lot, refresh it more often than your decision rhythm alone would tell you. If you make decisions monthly, update those data every 2 weeks. The faster refresh rate will help you understand whether the changes you're looking at in your numbers are real trends or just random fluctuations in noisy data. Now, to be clear, you're not setting one cadence for all the data in your business. You're setting one cadence for each data set. A retail shop might want sales data weekly, or email performance monthly, and inventory costs quarterly. That's one business with 3 different rhythms, and all 3 are correct. Now, here are some starting points. These are just suggestions, they're not rules, and you should adjust them the moment your own business tells you something different. If you're in retail or e-commerce or home services or a lot of B2B businesses, then weekly is usually about right for your core numbers. Your market moves fast, and so do the decisions that you make in it. Advertising, pricing, who you're reaching out to this week, those move on a short clock, and your data needs to keep up with them. But if you're in professional services, like a coach or a consultant, an agency, or anything with a longer sales conversation, monthly is usually plenty. Your marketing and sales cycles run slower. A lead you talk to in March might sign in June. So weekly numbers on a cycle that long are just noise you'll have to interpret. Now, there's one kind of data refresh that doesn't fit on a calendar at all, and it's worth planning for on its own. Some refreshes are triggered by events, not dates. For example, when a marketing campaign ends, after you change your prices, the week before a meeting where you're going to make highly critical decisions. Those kinds of events don't always fit with the normal data cadence, and they shouldn't wait for it. So, any of these cadences can be right weekly, monthly, quarterly, after every campaign. What matters is that you picked it because of when you make the decisions instead of refreshing your data whenever you happen to remember that you have data. So, where do you write down that decision about your data cadence? Fortunately, you already built the place. It's your export log. It's sitting at the top of your data folder, and it already holds four key things about your data: what platform they came from, what you exported, what date range it covers, and the day you pulled it. Now, just add one extra column: how often this data gets refreshed. That's all you need to add, and it tells you when things are overdue. The log already tells you when you last pulled each data set, and now it's going to tell you when you were supposed to pull it next. That's the third job this log has done for you across this series. Remember, it helps you find the right file without opening anything. It lets you pull the same report the same way next time, and now it tells you when your data has gone stale. For data files that you keep by hand, those that sit inside your manual folder, those need a rhythm just as much as your platform based data as well. And they're the easiest ones to forget about because you don't log into something, so it feels less official. So make sure you add them into your export log and treat them like the rest of your data. All right, you know how often that data gets refreshed. Now, the other half of it. When that new data shows up, what actually happens inside your data folder? How are you adding in the new data? Well, there are two ways, and you're going to use both depending on the kind of data you're working with. The first way, and the one you'll probably use most, is incremental. Each time, you pull only what's new since the last data pull. That file gets named and filed like everything else, and it stacks up in the data folder next to the ones before it. January's file, February's file, March's file, they're all just sitting there in order. And here's why that's the default. You already pulled your whole history back in the transfer video. That was one big lift, and you did it. Everything after that is just keeping up. Repulling 4 years of orders every month is work you've already done. It's also faster usually. The files stay smaller, and you stay well under whatever cap your AI tool puts on data uploads. Now, there's one rule that makes stacking work, and it's the one you really have to get right. Your date ranges can't overlap. Your next data pull starts the day after the last day of data already sitting in that folder. If your last file runs through January 31st, the next one starts on February 1st. And you already know that date because you wrote the range in your export log when you pulled it. Here's what happens if you get it wrong. You pull January 1st through March 31st. Next month, you pull March 1st through April 30th. You now have March in there twice. Hand both files to your AI and it counts March twice, and every number that touches your first quarter is wrong. There's no error, no warning. If you're lucky, your AI will let you, but nothing on your screen is probably going to look unusual. Now, there's a second requirement for stacking data files, and it's an easy one to break without noticing. Those files only work together if they're actually the same thing. The same report, the same columns, the same settings. If you pull one export with a filter on and the next one without it, then you don't have a series. You have two unrelated files that happen to be in the same folder. That's the other reason your export log records what's in each file. Next month, you're not guessing at which of 12 reports you picked. You look it up and you pull it the same way. Now, the second way to update your data is a full replacement. You pull everything, every time. And that new file replaces the old one entirely as your current picture. And I want to be clear, this isn't some rare situation. Most of you have at least one data set that works this way. And there are a few reasons why this would happen. The first reason is you might be working with snapshot data. Your customer list, what's on your shelves right now, your product catalog, your active subscriber list. These aren't records of things that happened or events that occur. They're a description of how things are today. There's no new since last month to pull out of your inventory because inventory isn't an event, it's a state. So every export is the whole picture, and full replacement isn't a choice you're making, it's just what the data are. Now, the second reason is data that gets updated. This one catches people. Your ad platform might keep updating conversion attributions for days after an impression. So the numbers you pull on Monday might differ from the numbers that show on a report on Friday. Your payment data isn't final until those things settle the following month, or even more extreme, you could have a refund that lands in 1 month against an order somebody placed 2 months ago. If your data exhibits those kinds of patterns, then the incremental file you pulled in a month or two ago could be wrong by now. And nothing is ever going to go back and fix it because that file is just sitting in a folder. You have to pull the whole thing again to get the most up-to-date data. Now, your cheat sheet should already have flagged this for you, by the way. That's exactly the kind of thing that belongs in your caveat section. For example, this platform uses a 7-day attribution window. If you wrote it down back in the context video, you already know which of your data sets does this. Now, the third reason this happens is a platform that won't let you bound and export by date. You click export and you just get everything, and there's no date range control anywhere on the screen. I mean, if that's the case, then fine, you just take what you're given. Fortunately, you can still use the same file naming conventions regardless of which method you use to update your data. The date on the file is still the last day of data inside it, still answering one question: how current is this? An incremental file covering February gets the end of February. A full replacement file you pull today gets today. And keep the old full replacement files. They stack in the folder like everything else, so there's no new rule to learn. And if your platform only holds 2 years of history, that older pull is the only copy you've got that goes back further. Now let's talk about how this actually gets done, because a rhythm you don't keep isn't a habit. And you want this to become a habit for your business. Don't run 8 refreshes on 8 different days. Batch them all into one data downloading session. Whatever your slowest common cadence is, for most of you that's going to be monthly, do all of them in one session. If you've got a couple that run weekly, then those are the exceptions, and they're usually going to take you just a few minutes to do. But importantly, put it on your calendar, a recurring appointment, maybe half an hour. Treat it like anything else that you intend to actually do. Sometime this month is not a plan, and we all know it, so make sure it gets scheduled. And when you're in that session, nothing new happens. Every file that lands goes through the routine from the last video. Check it, file it, and log it. Open the file. Confirm it's what you asked for and that the columns still match your cheat sheet. Rename it and put it in its folder, and add one row to the export log. It's the same habit you already have. All you've done today is just put it on a schedule. Hey, if this series has been useful to you, hit that like button. It genuinely helps other business owners find this stuff. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because there's more great content coming after this series wraps, and I don't want you to miss any of it. All right, now that we've gotten the data expiring out of the way, the second thing on that list of things that expire are your cheat sheets. And there's a specific way that this one can silently hurt you. Let's say you update a cheat sheet. Maybe a column got renamed. Maybe you finally wrote down what that one weird field means. You save it. And right there, right next to your data, right where it's supposed to live. That's great. But your AI might still be using the old version of that file. Because remember, there were 3 ways to get that cheat sheet into your AI. If you're uploading it into a chat window every time, then you're fine, because you're going to grab the updates in the current version the next time you upload it. If you're using a tool that reads your folders directly, like Claude Code or ChatGPT Codex, you're fine too, because it's looking at that file and it's going to read the updated file after you added them. But if you loaded that cheat sheet into a project or a gem, if you're on Gemini, that project now has its own copy. And it's sitting there holding that old version unless you take the time to swap the files. Now, the fix here isn't a system, it's really just a list. When you put a copy of a cheat sheet in a project folder, write down where you put it. Right there in the cheat sheet, right at the bottom, make a list. This one is also loaded into my revenue forecasting project. Then, when you update the master, you walk through that list and you update the file in all the locations where it belongs. For most of you, it's only going to be 2 or 3 places where you need to make an update. Now, when do you check whether a cheat sheet needs updating at all? Well, you don't. Not on a schedule anyway. The check is already built into the routine. Every time a file lands, you compare it to the cheat sheet. That's how you find out something changed. Which means your cheat sheet gets checked exactly as often as you pull that data. A data set you refresh weekly gets checked weekly. One you refresh quarterly might carry a wrong definition around for 2 months before you notice. This is another reason why you want to refresh the data as often as you need for the timing of your decisions, because you want to catch those changes first so you can make your decision with the best and most timely data. Now, the third thing on the expiration list is your saved analyses, and this is one that can go stale quickly. Back in the organize video, I told you that every time you ask your AI a real question, you're going to write down 3 things: the question you asked, which files you gave it, and the result you got back. And you keep those in a named folder for the analyses you run over and over again. So when next month comes around and you're running it again, here's what you do with that document. First, don't edit the old document, make a copy, and then edit the new copy to create a new document. The date on an analysis document is the day you ran it, and that rule is going to do something for you here, because the document for each run will stack up in the folder. And now you can open the folder and you can look at any of your, for example, forecasting analyses over the past 6 months, and you can see how they evolved over time. If you overwrite that document every time, then you've really only got one document that only ever knows about the immediately last analysis, that last one you did. Second, add one line at the top. What's different from last time? You added a file, you reworded the question, you updated a cheat sheet since the last run. Just one sentence. That line is the difference between a folder of documents and an actual record of your thinking. And here's one that you really need to watch out for. When a cheat sheet gets replaced, not a caveat added, but a genuine replacement because a column started meaning something different or there was a structural change in the file, your trend line is going to break right there. Now, in the last video, I gave you a test for that. Could you put last year's number and this year's number on the same chart and have that chart tell you anything meaningful? When the answer is no, write that in your analysis folder on the day it happens. Because a year from now, you're going to look at your own chart. You're going to see the number jump in September and start looking for what happened in your business that month. And maybe nothing happened in your business. It's just a definition that changed. The note is the only thing that's going to tell you that. And if you stopped running an analysis altogether, add a note in the documentation saying so. That way, if you forget, you won't accidentally waste time updating it because you'll see the note right there at the top of the documentation. Now, the last thing on the expiration list is the data inventory document you built back in the source video, way back when, where you wrote down what data your business has and where it all lives. That list was a photograph of your business on the day you made it. Since then, some things have probably changed. You might have signed up for a new tool. Maybe you stopped using one and never took it off the list. You switched email platforms. Maybe a report that you relied on got deprecated by a platform, or you had metrics that got renamed and recalculated. So twice a year, at least, open that list and walk through it. Look for what's new, look for what's gone, and what changed underneath you. This one is going to take some real time, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. You're going back through every platform your business uses, but you're only doing it twice a year, and it's how you make sure that every decision you make after it is built on the best information you've actually got. And when you find that a report you depended on has disappeared, Don't stop there. Do the same thing I told you back in the transfer video. Go check whether that data lives someplace else in your technology stack. Data has a way of existing in more than one place, so go find the other one. While you've got that data inventory list open, there are two additional decisions worth making at the same time. First, prune it. Back in the transfer video, I told you not to export everything just because it's there, because every file you pull is a file you'll have to pull again. And you don't want that do that any more than necessary. So look at your list honestly. If you haven't opened a data set in months, then you're not using it. Take it off your list and stop refreshing it. The files stay in the folder and nothing gets deleted. You just stop spending time on it every month. That's not giving up on it. That's your workshop getting honest about the evolution of your business and what you actually build with. A second, take a look at your folders. Back in the organize video, I told you not to worry about adding folders for years or quarters or months, and to build the habit first of downloading the data and decide later on how to organize it with real files in front of you instead of just guessing. So if you've been doing this for a while now, that later has just arrived. Open a dataset folder. If there's only 8 files in there, then you can probably just leave it alone. But if there's 60 divided between months and years, it's probably time to add a level of organization. You'll know it when you see it, and now that you're deciding it with real evidence based on the data that you have right in front of you and the files that you own. Before I wrap up this series, there's one more thing that actually decides whether any of this survives over time, and it has nothing to do with folders or file names. You're going to fall behind. I'm not suggesting it might happen. I'm telling you it's going to happen. You're going to have a quarter where the business gets loud and the data refresh sessions don't happen. And then they don't happen again. And one day you open that folder and the newest file in there is 3 or 4 months old. That doesn't make you a bad business owner. That makes you a real one. Heck, it happens to me. Every owner I know runs out of time before they run out of things that need doing, and every one of them has to decide what gets pushed off for later. Some things get pushed off far more often than others, and this is the kind of work that is almost always near the front of that line of things to get pushed. So let's talk about how to deal with that now. Here's what not to do. Don't sit down and try to pull 3 separate monthly files to make the folder look like you never missed a month. That's just you punishing yourself, and it doesn't make the analysis any better. Pull the gap as a single file. Whatever you missed, just pull it in one export. Name it for the last day of data inside it, log it, and you're back on rhythm. Your naming rule handles it without any special treatment. The date still answers how current the file is. A workshop that's 3 months behind is a 20-minute fix. Trying to fix a problem, though, so it looks like there was never a problem in the first place, takes far longer. So that's Keep Current, and that is the end of the AI Data Workshop series. So let me put the whole thing in front of you one last time, because you built more than you probably realize. S stands for source. You know what data your business has and where every piece of it lives. T stands for transfer. You know the 4 decisions to make before you click export and how to find that button on a platform you've never used, as well as how to tell whether what came back is what you actually asked for. O is for organize. One home for everything. Data organized by platform, dataset, and files. One dataset naming rule and one export log. And all of your data sitting side by side with your analyses and documentation of how you use the data. C is for context. A cheat sheet for every data set so your AI knows what it's looking at instead of guessing. And a routine that fires every time you download new data to check it, file it, and log it. Finally, K for keep current. A rhythm for each data set, a decision about how new data enters your folders, and the 4 things you now know expire with a plan to keep everything up to date. And go back to what I promised you in the very first video. Look at what you can do now. You can find that file you used last month and its name tells you something. You can hand your AI 2 files and get one real answer. And you're not rebuilding your analysis from scratch every single time you sit down. That's a workshop, and you built it. The Build Your AI Data Workshop checklist is linked in the description below. It walks through all 5 stations with templates you can fill in as you go, and now that you've seen the whole thing, it's worth going back through with it in hand. And here's where you need to think about what's next. Everything we built here happens before you analyze anything. The next series is about what to do when the data itself is messy. The duplicates, the blanks, the 3 different spellings of the same customer name. That's a real problem and it deserves its own run of videos. Subscribe and you'll catch the first one. I'm Rob Fernango, and this is the AI Growth Accelerator. You've just finished building your AI data workshop. Now let's start putting it to use.